Imagine a jet that costs hundreds of millions, built with the finest Western engineering, carrying the reputation of being nearly untouchable in the skies, suddenly finding itself locked, targeted, and neutralized by a rival that the world thought could never match its power. That's not just a dogfight, that's a geopolitical wake-up call. The incident that sparked global attention unfolded in a way that neither military analysts nor geopolitical observers could afford to ignore. It wasn't just a random skirmish or a routine exercise. It was a moment that challenged deeply held assumptions about the superiority of Western military hardware. Pakistan, armed with Chinese technology, managed to effectively neutralize a Rafale fighter jet, an aircraft that has been marketed and regarded as one of the most advanced fourth-plus-generation multi-role fighters in the world. For years, the Rafale had been projected as a game-changer in the skies, capable of dominating adversaries with its advanced avionics, beyond-visual-range missiles, and sophisticated electronic warfare systems. Many believed that any air force flying the Rafale automatically held an insurmountable edge. Yet in this engagement, Pakistan demonstrated that the narrative wasn't so absolute. The encounter revealed how rapidly evolving defense technology and strategic thinking could close the gap between traditionally dominant air powers and those often seen as underdogs. Whether the incident occurred in a real combat situation or within the framework of an advanced simulation, the message was clear. The Chinese-made systems in Pakistan's arsenal were no longer just budget alternatives. They were potent, precise, and adaptable. What startled many in Western defense circles was not only the fact that a Rafale could be bested, but that it could be done without relying on Western technology at all. This represented a break from decades of dependency on Euro-American platforms to counter Western aircraft. The engagement highlighted a shift in the air combat paradigm, showing that supremacy isn't guaranteed by hardware alone, but by how well that hardware is integrated, supported, and deployed within a larger operational strategy. It was a wake-up call that technology gaps can close faster than anticipated, and that even the most celebrated jets can find themselves vulnerable in the face of unconventional tactics, cutting-edge electronic warfare, and a determined adversary armed with non-Western tools. The ripple effect of this single incident extended far beyond the borders of South Asia, sparking intense discussions in think tanks, military institutions, and intelligence briefings across the globe, with many now questioning how many more such assumptions about aerial dominance are waiting to be broken. China-Pakistan defense synergy is not something that developed overnight. It is the result of decades of calculated cooperation, shared strategic goals, and a mutual understanding of each other's security needs. This partnership has matured from basic military trade to a deeply integrated defense collaboration, where both nations work hand in hand on research, development, and deployment of advanced weapon systems. Pakistan's reliance on Chinese platforms has evolved far beyond simply buying aircraft or missile systems. It now involves co-producing and customizing technology to meet very specific operational requirements. Over the years, joint exercises between the Pakistan Air Force and the People's Liberation Army Air Force have allowed both sides to study each other's tactics, adapt to each other's operational styles, and refine combat doctrines that maximize the strengths of their respective technologies. The co-development of platforms like the JF-17 Thunder was just the beginning. It symbolized the shift from a buyer-seller relationship to a partnership where Pakistan could access high-grade Chinese avionics, radar systems, missile technology, and electronic warfare capabilities. The advantage of this synergy is that Pakistan does not have to wait for lengthy bureaucratic approvals that often hinder arms transfers from Western nations. Instead, it receives direct, rapid upgrades aligned with its evolving needs. Chinese technology, once criticized as reverse-engineered or less reliable, has now reached a stage where it can rival, and in certain tactical conditions surpass, some of the best Western offerings. More importantly, China tailors its defense exports to counter the specific threats faced by Pakistan, meaning the systems are optimized for real-world adversaries, not just for showroom demonstrations. This means that when Pakistan fields a new missile system, radar or fighter capability sourced from China, it is already battle-configured for the kind of scenarios Pakistan expects to encounter. In the context of taking down a Rafale, this synergy played a decisive role. The systems deployed were not off-the-shelf imports, but highly integrated assets tested in joint drills, refined through intelligence sharing, and supported by a long-term strategic commitment between Beijing and Islamabad. This deep military alignment ensures that Pakistan not only gains access to high-performance weaponry, but also the doctrinal and tactical framework to use it to maximum effect, creating an aerial defense capability that is increasingly difficult to underestimate or counter in the modern battlefield. The technological edge through integration was one of the decisive factors in enabling Pakistan to challenge and overcome a platform as advanced as the Rafale. Rather than relying on a single piece of hardware to provide superiority, Pakistan's approach was to create a networked ecosystem where various Chinese-made systems, radars, missiles, and electronic warfare suites worked seamlessly together to outmatch a technologically superior opponent. At the heart of this was the deployment of high-performance active electronically scanned array (AESA) radars that provided long-range detection and tracking capabilities, allowing Pakistani pilots to detect and lock onto targets well before entering the Rafale's engagement envelope. This early warning advantage was coupled with the use of beyond visual range missiles such as the PL-15, which boasts impressive range and seeker technology, making it capable of threatening adversary aircraft before they could close the distance for their own strikes. The integration did not stop there. Electronic warfare systems played a pivotal role by disrupting and degrading the Rafale's situational awareness, creating windows of vulnerability that could be exploited for a successful missile engagement. This blending of sensors, weapons, and countermeasures was not random. It was the product of deliberate engineering and training to ensure that each system complemented the other. The advantage of such integration is that it reduces reaction time and maximizes lethality, allowing pilots to make split-second decisions based on a unified picture of the battle space rather than piecemeal data from separate systems. In an age where information dominance often decides the outcome of air combat, this ability to fuse data and control engagements from a position of awareness is critical. Chinese technology has matured to the point where it can be adapted into these kinds of networked frameworks, giving Pakistan a fighting capability that rivals or even surpasses more expensive Western systems in specific tactical situations. This was especially significant because the Rafale is marketed for its sensor fusion and superior avionics. Yet in this engagement, Pakistan demonstrated that comparable or countervailing integration could be achieved using non-Western systems. The lesson here was clear for military planners worldwide. The future of aerial combat lies not just in having advanced jets, but in creating integrated kill chains where every asset, airborne or ground-based, feeds into a single, decisive strike capability that leaves even highly respected aircraft vulnerable. Tactical innovation over pure hardware was the defining element that allowed Pakistan to outmaneuver an aircraft widely regarded as one of the finest in its class. Possessing advanced jets is one thing, but knowing how to deploy them in a way that neutralizes an opponent's strengths is what truly decides the outcome of an engagement. Pakistan's Air Force has historically placed strong emphasis on strategy, deception, and exploiting terrain, and in this case, these principles were applied with precision. Instead of engaging in a head-on confrontation that would have allowed the Rafale to exploit its full suite of sensors and weapons, Pakistani pilots orchestrated the engagement on their own terms, dictating the time, location, and method of the fight. The ability to control the engagement zone meant using ground-based radar and airborne early warning aircraft to create a layered detection net, guiding fighters into optimal firing positions before the Rafale could even react. Once contact was made, tactics such as hit-and-run engagements, the use of electronic countermeasures to blind or mislead the Rafale's targeting systems, and coordinated multi-axis attacks ensured that the Rafale's pilot was constantly forced into a defensive posture rather than being able to press the offensive. The use of terrain masking, flying low to avoid detection and then climbing rapidly to fire, helped create moments of surprise that negated some of the Rafale's range and radar advantages. By integrating these tactics with precision missile strikes, Pakistan shifted the fight from a contest of platform superiority to a contest of situational control. This approach reflects a deeper understanding of modern aerial warfare, where adaptability and the ability to disrupt an opponent's decision-making cycle are often more decisive than the raw specifications of the aircraft involved. The Rafale may have had superior thrust, agility, and avionics on paper, but by denying it the opportunity to operate within its optimal combat parameters, Pakistan effectively leveled the playing field and, at critical moments, tilted it in their favor. This form of tactical innovation sends a clear message. A smaller air force with fewer resources can still pose a serious challenge to more advanced adversaries if it knows how to blend technology, intelligence, and operational creativity into a coherent and aggressive game plan that keeps the opponent off balance from the first moment of contact to the final decisive strike. Strategic implications for India were immediate and unavoidable because the Rafale acquisition had been one of the most high-profile defense deals in Indian history, touted as a decisive leap in the country's aerial combat capability. The purchase was justified to the public and the strategic community on the grounds that the Rafale would deliver a technological edge over Pakistan's air force for decades to come, providing unmatched performance in beyond visual range engagements, precision strike capabilities, and survivability in contested airspace. Yet the moment Pakistan demonstrated that it could effectively counter a Rafale using Chinese-supplied technology, the narrative began to shift. It was no longer enough for India to claim superiority based solely on platform acquisition. The incident suggested that Pakistan's countermeasures, tactics, and integrated systems had already closed much of the gap that the Rafale was meant to create. For India's defense planners, this raised uncomfortable questions about return on investment and operational assumptions. The incident hinted at the possibility that billions spent on high-end Western jets might not translate into uncontested air dominance if the adversary has invested smartly in asymmetric counters. It also underscored a broader vulnerability. If Pakistan's approach could neutralize a Rafale, similar tactics might be effective against other high-value Indian assets. This has implications not only for future air battles, but also for deterrence dynamics. India's military posture in South Asia relies heavily on the perception of overwhelming superiority, and if that perception is eroded, it can embolden adversaries and shift the strategic balance. This scenario may push India to accelerate its own indigenous defense projects, seek more advanced countermeasures from France, or diversify its technology sources to avoid a single point of failure. On the political front, the development could fuel domestic debates over defense procurement strategies, especially concerning whether emphasis should be placed on fewer, more advanced platforms or larger fleets of more cost-effective but well-integrated systems. In the wider regional context, this incident will inevitably be studied by other nations, watching the evolving dynamics of South Asian air power, as it demonstrates that even top-tier aircraft like the Rafale can be challenged when faced with a prepared, innovative, and technologically adaptive opponent equipped with non-Western systems tailored for specific adversarial conditions. Why the West is alarmed goes far beyond the singular event of a Rafale being neutralized by Pakistani forces equipped with Chinese technology. It strikes at the very core of long-standing assumptions about the dominance of Western-designed and manufactured military systems. For decades, Western defense industries have set the gold standard for high-performance combat aircraft, with platforms like the Rafale, Eurofighter Typhoon, and F-35 marketed as unbeatable in their respective roles. These aircraft are not just tools of war, they are symbols of technological superiority, strategic influence, and the political reach of the nations that produce them. When a nation like Pakistan, historically dependent on Western hardware, successfully challenges one of these platforms using Chinese systems, it sends shockwaves through defense circles in Europe and North America. The concern is not simply that a Rafale was outmatched. It is that the engagement suggests a maturing Chinese defense sector capable of producing export-ready systems that can credibly threaten the best that the West has to offer. This undermines a key pillar of Western military strategy, which has long relied on the assumption that potential adversaries will be technologically outclassed. The event raises fears about the shifting balance in the global arms market, where countries that once bought exclusively from the West may now see Chinese systems as viable, cost-effective, and strategically advantageous alternatives. This is particularly troubling for NATO nations, as it could dilute the West's influence in key regions by eroding the dependency of allied or partner nations on Western defense technology. Another layer to the alarm is the realization that Chinese technology is not advancing in isolation. It is being field-tested in real or highly realistic combat conditions by partners like Pakistan, which have direct operational experience facing Western-equipped forces. This creates a feedback loop where Chinese engineers can quickly iterate and improve designs based on actual performance against Western systems, accelerating the pace of development. Intelligence analysts understand that this kind of iterative, adversary-specific evolution can be far more dangerous than theoretical capability on paper. It forces the West to acknowledge that its technological lead is not a static advantage, but a constantly narrowing gap, one that could close entirely in certain operational domains, if not addressed with urgency, innovation, and a re-evaluation of how future air combat supremacy will be maintained. This incident is far more than a clash between two aircraft. It's a moment that has redefined the way nations will think about air combat, defense procurement, and military strategy in the years ahead. Pakistan's use of Chinese technology to challenge and defeat a Rafale wasn't merely a tactical win. It was proof that the monopoly of the West over cutting-edge aerial dominance is no longer guaranteed. It demonstrated how strategic alliances, integration of systems, and innovative tactics can overcome the weight of technological prestige. For India, it's a strategic jolt that demands a rethinking of air power assumptions. For the West, it's a sobering reminder that its most celebrated platforms are now being seriously tested by emerging powers outside its traditional sphere. And for the world, it's a signal that the future of air warfare will not be decided solely by the nation with the most expensive jets, but by the one that understands how to adapt, innovate, and fight on its own terms. The skies are no longer one-sided. Every engagement now carries the possibility of rewriting the rules.